Okay, we are now recording, and people come on. If you could mute yourselves, that would be great. Other than Leigh, that would be great. Welcome to our webinar on how to generate press for your pet care startup from Leap Venture Academy. We're so excited that everybody can join. My name is Asad Butt. I am what is my title? Director of Ventures and Partnerships at Kinship, and also a partner for Leap Ventures. I'm just going to do a little introduction and then pass it over to Leigh. Really excited about this webinar. It has been our top selling webinar so far. Really excited about that. And why won't the slide change? Because I was at the end of the presentation. So thank you for joining us, Leigh. We'll transition to you in just 1 second. A little bit of housekeeping. We're going to do about 25 to 30 minutes of a presentation. You can ask questions anytime in the chat. We'll probably get to all the questions at the end of the presentation. You will be muted the entire time because we are expecting a lot of people, and this session is being recorded, so don't say or do anything that you don't want to be public. About Leap Ventures, for those of you who don't know, really we are here to help support entrepreneurs like yourself in the pet care space. We were started a little over a year ago, and our goal is to provide the resources to help you guys get to the next level. Things like this webinar. We do boot camps, we do webinars, meetups, pitch competitions, and then we have our big Venture Studio Accelerator program. It is a partnership between two organizations, Michelson Found Animals, which is a nonprofit, a really cool nonprofit in the Los Angeles area with a social enterprise model. You should definitely learn more about them if you haven't already investigated them. And then Kinship, which is a division of Mars Pet Care. So the two partners run the LEAP program, and our two big projects at the moment. One is Academy, which is what you're here to take part in. It's our way of building community in the pet care space, and we firmly believe that a rising tide will raise all ships. And so really excited to do things like this. And then we actually have a boot camp next week on Monday, which some of the participants are taking part in for early stage female-led startups. We're excited about that. And then our Leap Venture Studio, for those of you who are not aware, it's our kind of accelerator program, incubator program. It takes place in Los Angeles in the spring. Applications close in 13 days. So get your applications in. $200K in investment plus access to mentors and advisors. Really a great way to jumpstart your accelerator or your company. And with that, I'm going to transition to Leigh and give her control of the board. And we're so excited to have you, and thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I do need permissions back to be able to share.
Yes, I'm going to stop share. Are you able to share now?
It looks like it.
I see you.
Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Yes.
Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, I'm Leigh Isaacson, CEO and co-founder of Dig, Dog Person's dating app. That's why today is called Digging into the Press. We can hear a bunch of you now. There's a lot of people here, so please just make sure you are on mute, or else I will get confused. There we go. Sounds great. Awesome. So I like to start off by just really scaring everyone with slides like this. If you take a look at this, we're going to go through 3 years really quickly. 2017, every minute of the day, what's happening in each one of these sectors. So pick one that you want to take a look at. For example, take a look at Instagram. In the bottom right-hand corner, in 2017, every minute of the day, Instagram users post 46,000 photos. Watch how that changes to 2018, jumped up to 49,000 photos. And you can take a look at everything else on here too. Just incredible. The Weather Channel receiving 18 million forecast requests every single minute. Bitcoin coming on the stage here. And then 2019 jumping up to 55,000 photos posted on Instagram every minute. They also add in Instagram stories at the top right. And I really like to start off with these 3 slides because it should both terrify you and overwhelm you and show you all of the opportunities you have out there. So both you and reporters are trying to get eyeballs while all of this other stuff is happening. Reporters are using some of these things to get their stories out, so you have even more opportunity. But just keeping in mind that all the pet care startups here, you have a leg up in cutting through the clutter. And it is literally the dog photos and the dog videos you have. So what we're talking about today is really taking advantage of what you have already and putting your company in the best light. So reporters want to take advantage of that as well to cut through the clutter. And so why am I talking to you today? I was a TV reporter. So I was a TV reporter in Syracuse, New York. I was a TV reporter for One Africa Television in Windhoek, Namibia in Southwest Africa. And an investigative reporter in New Orleans. You see some photos there of me reporting during Mardi Gras in 2015. Just a quick side note, if you do visit New Orleans during Mardi Gras, please don't throw beads at the reporters. They are extraordinarily busy and it is a tough time to work. But on top of that, I also have my master's in Homeland Security and Emergency Response Management. I teach at Tulane University. I teach Intro to Journalism to undergrads, and I teach Media, Terrorism, Disasters, and Crisis Communications to master's students. Taking a look at how I looked as a reporter and how I look as representing DIG on TV, really obvious difference is my hair. As a reporter, you are trying to be as plain Jane as possible. I had to keep my hair straight into my shoulders. I had to wear, basic colors. You had to look good, but not distracting. When I'm representing DIG on TV, I want you to remember me, and I want you to remember DIG. And all of these details come into play in getting press and then making sure your message sticks when you actually get the press and you get the chance to be on TV. So there's first one thing I wanted everyone here to know about reporters. They're often extraordinarily busy, tired, overworked, very much underpaid. If there are any reporters here who disagree with me, please write me. I've not yet talked to one. But it's really important to know that it's an extraordinarily tiring and hard job, especially for local news reporters. But they're not your only option. So this photo right here is an example of what a morning news meeting might look like in a local TV station. And in this room, every day at about 9 o'clock, let's say, reporters are coming in and they're determining what has to be covered, right? You have a mayor's press conference. You have, a follow-up for a shooting the night before and seeing what new information you have. And then everyone has the opportunity to pitch what stories they want to cover. And so the reporters will certainly go first, but anyone else in that entire newsroom has the opportunity to get into this meeting and to throw out ideas. And so you might have much better luck talking to a photographer or talking to a morning news producer who might only have 100 followers on Twitter compared to the morning news anchor that you see in your living room every night when you're watching TV. And so really thinking about all of the opportunities out there and understanding how a newsroom comes together and how an editorial board really determines that news. And it's different across all different outlets, but once you see who's on the team, it really does open up your opportunity to get your story in front of anybody in that newsroom. Just to hammer home that point, this is a photo I'm so glad someone took. This is a photo of me as a reporter. I'm standing in 105-degree heat in New Orleans. In a water main break. I was live all morning. I forgot my rain boots and somehow still had my snow boots from Syracuse. And if you see at the bottom there, snow boots do not hold out water. So I'm just standing in hot, completely soaked through boots there. And I promise you, if one of you pitched me a story about any pet care, exciting launch that might be happening that day, there's not a chance I'm answering your email. I'm probably not going to see it. By the time I get back to my desk, I might have 600 emails of pitches. But if you emailed that to the news producer who has been able to sit in air conditioning all day and had time for things like refilling a water bottle or lunch, they might be much more likely to get back to you. So just really wanted to hammer home that point. And there's a reason I'm talking about local news. One of the best ways to go national is to pitch local. And I stress this a lot. And one of the reasons for that is just the way that local news is constructed today. So for example, on Channel 6 in New Orleans, it's an NBC station, which means it's an NBC affiliate. So any story that's run by a local NBC News can be picked up by national NBC News. Once it's picked up by national NBC News, even if it's just put on the website, then any other local NBC News across the station can play it. So once it's played in New Orleans, it might play in 50 different stations across the country. But they're more affiliates than just the obvious one. So they're also owned by Hearst. Hearst Television owns 48 different TV stations across the country. And it's not just NBC. They've got lots of different affiliates. Once they air it on another station, maybe in the same region or, it just because they like the story, then it's then on that affiliate as well and can get picked up in other places. They're also CNN affiliates, so CNN can pick it up and play it. They're also AP News affiliates. And so it's much more accessible to reach your local news and a local news reporter, knowing that the right story could have the opportunity to go national really quickly. And that's exactly what happens to us. The first story we ever did was picked up by WDSU in New Orleans the week that we launched Dig on the App Store, and it was played across every Hearst television station, and it was then picked up by iHeartRadio and played across 300 radio stations from there. And so just know that to go national, one of the easiest things you can do is try pitching local first. So what are you actually pitching? This is a quote from journalism school. It doesn't mean much, but I love it. So if a dog bites a man, it's not news, but if a man bites a dog, you've got a story. What on the earth does that mean, right? If you're going to take away anything from this presentation, remember this screen and the next screen. If you can hit all of these points, then you are in really good shape of getting your story to be at least considered newsworthy and picked up by the news. So the number one thing here is timeliness. Another quote from an old journalism professor, it's called news, it's not called olds. So it has to be something that's new, it can't be something that's old. That's really the number one golden rule here, is that you want to make sure your pitch is timely. The next would be proximity. What I call proximity is because on local news, that's literally the radius around the station that you're being covered. So are you connecting your story to the audience that outlet is going to be reaching? So for local TV news, it's literally proximity, but for anything else, it might just mean what type of community is that? Maybe you're pitching a story to Runner's World, and so you really have to think about how does your story relate to people who read Runner's World or people who are training for marathons. Maybe you came up with the idea for your business while training for a marathon, so then you would pitch that story to Runner's World. So really thinking about who you're actually pitching to. Conflict and controversy. Are you disrupting a norm? Does not everyone agree with what you're about to say? This can feel difficult at first because you really want to get the best news out about your business and only the best news out. That's going to sound like an advertisement, and that's going to be shut down by the news automatically. They are not here to run your ads. So if you can present something about why this is a little bit different, a little bit edgy, that's going to elevate your pitch tremendously. Does not everyone agree with what you're about to say? That gives it a little bit more edge. Human interest. For pet care, this one is by far the easiest. Dogs rule, like babies rule, making sure you're really putting that up front. But another way to think of this is superlatives. So not just it's about dogs, but human interest. We love things that are the best, the fastest, the first. If you can include superlatives in your pitch, you're doing a really good job. Relevance. How does this story tie into something maybe they're already covering or something they should be covering? Maybe another station's been covering a story and this station really hasn't picked up. Maybe they don't have a different angle. Tie it into something that is already newsworthy to continue the trend of that newsworthiness and put yourself in the situation to be the leader on that conversation. And then serving a legitimate public interest or concern. A general news example of this would be maybe there's in New Orleans right now, we just had a hotel collapse. You always see them end the story with what streets are blocked off. It's not necessarily the main point of the story, but in the end, that's what all of us in New Orleans need to know. So what are you actually helping me by giving me this extra information that they can pass on as a legitimate public interest? So if you hit all the ideal points, that's phenomenal. You're in really good shape, but you also have to remember that the news is a business. And so in the end, your story really has to focus and give reporters the opportunity to excel at these things. They are looking for clicks, like we all are. They want their story to, go viral, just like we all do. And so you really have to consider, is this like a click-worthy story? Is this a quick hit? I'm going to say 99% of what you're pitching to reporters is not going to be breaking news. It's not something that they need to investigate. You're going to give them everything they need. So is this something that's going to be easy for them to cover? Is it going to look good? Is it going to have great video? But is it something that can get done relatively quickly? Maybe because you're right next to where the reporter is, or are you providing them with absolutely everything they need up front in order to cover that story? And we'll get more to that in a second. But another piece of that is to make sure it doesn't look like an advertisement, make sure you're offering other people that could support this story who are available as well. So if you're doing a story and you're able to say, also, this veterinarian is available who I've already talked to, who's, understands the importance of this, this, and this, and here's their information too. So it doesn't look like we're just asking you to do a story on Dig. And then, like I said, multiple interviews available. Make sure that you're not the only one offering up here. You're not just asking them to do a story on you specifically. You're thinking about the bigger picture. Even if they don't end up using it, making sure you're offering all these things up front so they can decide what they want to incorporate into their own story. And so one of our strategies at Dig is to create newsworthy events in each city we go to. So if you think about a Dig event and you kind of hit all the ideal newsworthy points, events are inherently timely, right? Like it's something that's going to happen soon. They're likely attractive and they're free opportunities for that local audience. So our events are totally free. So it's something that the audience can get out and do that might serve a legitimate public interest because we always have adoptable dogs, for example, at all of our events. We always feature local businesses. And so everything we do about these events, city by city, reaching out to the local reporter in that city and pitching really dedicated to them. And you can see why this video would look really good on any morning news show, for example. But in addition to pitching that story, I'm also showing them literally this. This is a screenshot of what my press kit looks like. So when I email a reporter or direct message a reporter, I'm sending a really quick 1 to 2 sentence pitch on what a story is, exactly who's available, what times the events are, whatever it may be. But I'm also including this link. Google Drive has these links for free, so you can make one on your own. And what I have here is every folder clearly labeled and filled with videos and photos in different formats for them to use, everything they could possibly need to cover a story about Dig. It even includes interviews of me. So somebody, as if I was being interviewed, if you see me on screen right now, looking right off screen and answering, giving a couple of sound bites to someone who's interviewing me. We've sent this out to reporters before and have found out they've run the interviews of me as if they were the ones doing the interview. Give them absolutely everything they need. We've got videos of past events here that get used all the time, photos of the founders and founding dogs, anything we could think that they would want, we put in here. Also, importantly, we put it in formats they can use in different ways. So we're formatting for their Instagram stories. We're formatting for their Twitter feeds. So that way it's easy for them to give those little web extra shares once they do run the story. They don't even have to edit anything. They could just take this, write what they want on top of it, and send it out. Make it as absolutely easy for them as possible, and you're going to be more likely to get covered. Also in our press kit that we send out to everyone is a deck that has a bunch of research. And this is just one example slide of our deck. In the bottom right, you see a line there that says there are more than 20 million single dog owners aged 30 or over in the US. We see that one used all the time. In the deck itself, I actually have sources for each one of these things. So you're giving them the opportunity to beef up their story without them having to do the research. All they have to do is click on the source and double check you. And it's not coming from you. So again, it's not necessarily research that I've done, but it's just showing that this is newsworthy because of all the other ways that people are talking about it, and look how big this market is in all of the ways here. So including research, and we never know what they're going to use, but giving them this opportunity to basically hone in on their research and get it done more quickly. So when you're generating your story idea, you have to hit all those points, and you have to have video for them. So what else do you have to think of? You're focusing your angle. What's the most compelling way to tell this story? For example, should I be the one that we suggest to do an interview, or maybe we want to offer them to people who are on Dig, who have already met and gone on a few dates? Depending on the outlet, maybe they would be a much more interesting interview for that community. What would the best visuals be? Is this a fun place, fun story for a dog park, or is this a fun story for a dark bar where people like to go on dates? When you're thinking about generating that story idea, thinking about all of these pieces coming together for what would be easiest and most visual for the reporter to cover. A big tip here, write part of the story. Take a look at news writing. This is this is very much a crash course. Each one of these slides is basically a week that I teach at Tulane. So you're getting a really short version of this, but writing part of the story. What I teach is different ways to do lead sentences. You can do anecdotal leads with an interesting quote. You can do just a straight to the point lead, whatever it might be. If you learn how to write like a news person, right, in AP style, you'll find that a lot of what they take is just directly copy and paste into their web stories. And so if you have a clever pun, they love puns, feel free to throw that into your press release, because if it makes it easier for them to write the story and they take it, it's more likely to get covered. Again, do your research. What facts can you add, and can you incorporate timely events or research? So one thing that everyone here can use is, if WAG or Rover releases a study about dog owners in general, about how much they love, going outdoors in the fall, everyone here can incorporate that, because that's new information from a well-known company, and it's a ton of people that were interviewed. And you can just incorporate that as part of your research deck, as the lead of your story. This news came out, here's how we connect to that, whatever it may be. So do your research. What new and exciting facts can you add and give to them? And then a really big point, see if it's been done already. You are going to ruin that relationship with that reporter if they've already covered this story exactly that way. Don't try it. Make sure that you're not annoying them by basically saying, I don't actually know anything yet you report on, but you should report on me, right? So make sure it hasn't been done already, especially by that reporter. So how are you actually pitching this story once you have this idea that you want to talk to reporters to? Determining the best way to reach them. You can go to most news stations online and click on team, and it'll have a breakdown of the reporters on that team. If it doesn't have their email, which oftentimes it does right there for that individual reporter, they usually do put their Twitter account. So you can try to direct message them. You can send a message that starts with their handle, so it's just a message between you two. And I can go into that if anyone has questions about Twitter as well. But think about, is there any other way? Where are they active? Are they more active? Are they constantly posting stories on Instagram? can you direct message them there? That might be a much easier way to connect with them. One thing I would point out here is don't try to reach out to them on LinkedIn. It might be really tempting. If they're active on LinkedIn, it's because they don't enjoy where they are and they're probably looking for another job. And so they don't want more messages there usually. This, again, all of this can be completely wrong. Every single reporter is different. This is just my opinions and my experience here. Really obvious one here. Start with their name, pronounce and spell it correctly. Take the time to make sure you're reaching out to the right person again. If you can tie in other articles that they've actually reported on, you know, hey, I saw you wrote about cats last week. Thought you might want to write about dogs this week. You know, that goes a really long way in building that relationship. Suggest the newsworthiness of your story idea. You don't have to be shy here. You can take that list of ideal newsworthy points and say, here's my pitch. Here's why this is timely. Here's why this connects to your audience. You know, here's why this adds conflict and controversy. Use those words and spell it out for them because they're reading a bunch of these really quickly. And if you can show them exactly why they can cover you or why they should cover you, that will help. Offer actual times that you're available. So, you know, this week I am in Denver from this day to this day, and I have these times available. If those don't work for you, I can figure something else out. But making sure, you know, they can build their schedule around what you want without them having to follow up with you. And then again, always make sure every time you're pitching, you include the press kit because you never know if they're just going to take it and use it. And they wouldn't have been able to do that if you didn't include it. Here's an example of the story I was talking about earlier in Denver. Again, you know, they love puns. We see headlines like this all the time. But on June 27th, we pitched, or the day before June 27th, we pitched one local news reporter in Denver. The story that we were launching a week later with an event in Denver. So we were launching Dig in Denver with a big event. The next day, without them replying to us, we see this headline, can your pooch lead to a smooch? A new dating app thinks so. Dig, which aims to provide connections for dog lovers, will launch in Denver late June. You see the timeliness there. You see that they're tying in Denver. You see that they're tying in the superlatives with the new dating app that's coming, the human interest, all of that already there in that headline and definitely taking some from our news pitch there. What was exciting was the very next day, a McClatchy newspaper reporter picked this story up and shared it across all 30 newspapers across the country. So that one story ran in the Miami Herald, it ran in Sacramento Bee. The very next day after that, it was picked up by the Daily Mail. I had a reporter from the Daily Mail forward me this story and say, hey, can you give me one new quote that I can incorporate into our story? Gave it to him because I have that already ready to go, and we'll get to that in a minute, having your quotes ready to go ahead of time. They ran the story. From there, it was picked up by Dallas Morning News, and it was picked up by Bloomberg Television and just took off, and that all started from just one individual Denver reporter. The reason it worked so well is because we were ready for it. We had the press kit. Everyone could take what they wanted as people forwarded it to each other. I was available to answer questions. I had my quote ready to go. And so if you have this already before you start pitching, you can take advantage of that momentum as it gets going. Really want to hone in on being ready with video specifically. I don't necessarily love this quote because I'm from the Northeast and I really love pizza, but video is like pizza. When it's bad, it's still pretty good. The point of this is you don't have to spend a ton on getting some, $1,000 company to come get an interview of you. Just start with what you have. Use your phone, hold it sideways, and make sure it's steady. And I say hold it sideways if you're pitching for, the news and you picture a TV like that. If you're pitching for a Snapchat account, make sure you're holding it the right way. But just get as much as you can. Get some B-roll. The difference between B-roll and A-roll. A-roll is things like your interviews. B-roll is things like that'll be on the background as the reporter is talking over it, right? So get a bunch of B-roll, get a bunch of dogs in your office, get, if you are manufacturing a product, get the type of video you see on TV that they love. Hold it steady as that material is going by. Sorry, we're not in manufacturing, so I'm not great at describing that. But for us, video of us typing on the computer, whatever it might be, get as much as you can from the beginning because they will use it. And again, I know I'm hammering home a lot of these points, but there's a lot of reasons to have that video, even if you think it's not necessarily the world's greatest. Reporters think about this all the time. Videos boosting clicks. And so they know that they're getting more engagement on, even if they just post it on their Twitter feed because it's not the world's greatest video, they know they're going to get better engagement with that. Obviously great return on ROI because of that. There are research that shows that video builds trust. And so as reporters are building relationships with their community and you're building relationships with reporters showing that type of video, there's incredible research out there about the amount of people who will watch how-to videos compared to just reading a how-to article. I'm trying to speed through this, so I understand there might be questions on this later. Everything that I'm saying is in our speaker notes as well if we're sending this out, which I'll be happy to if you write me. Google loves video, so reporters know that if their web story has any type of video in it, that it's going to get higher up in search ratings. Video appeals to mobile users, so a lot more news stations, really catering to the apps they have or their websites that people are viewing on their phone, as most people are looking at news on their phone rather than on their desktop. Overall, make sure you have video, put it into your press kit. A lot of reasons for that. Last point I'll make on this. This is a video of hail at 2:00 in the morning in New Orleans. This was posted by the local Channel 4 News at later that morning, and you can't see anything. This is a video of literally nothing, but still in the bottom left, you see at the moment I saw it, 541 people had also watched this video. And so the news knows this, that any type of video they have is going to help with engagement, even something as bad looking as this. Here's another example of a story that we do all the time that I think a lot of you guys can kind of think outside the box when you're thinking about newsworthiness. What we did was during The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, when those run, we pitch local ABC News because The Bachelor and The Bachelorette runs on ABC. We pitch their late night shows that'll run right after The Bachelor that will show them a local couple that's meeting in real life for the first time who matched on Dig. That might not sound newsworthy to you, but that's bringing in relevance, timeliness, that's the local community. We suggest showing this couple for the first time in like a fun, unique way that highlights a local business. The one you're looking at here is in LA at the Urban Den Dog Retreat, which is just a really cool place on its own where you can get dog massages, just really interesting place anyway. But this is reporter Mary Carrillo with NBC Sports. They picked up this story and they ran it during the Beverly Hills Dog Show. And so, you never know which way it's going to go, but that's the kind of thing. We've done that now probably 10 times in different TV markets across the country with local people on Dig and being able to highlight them in that way. So always think about the different type of outlets you could be pitching to. Your pitch to Forbes is going to be very different than your pitch to People Pets. We were on, one of the main reasons we got picked up by the Boston Globe was because we pitched the very, very local Jewish newspaper in Newton, Massachusetts, where we're from, when we were launching in Boston. And they were super proud that we had like our bat mitzvahs in that town, and look where we are today. And a Boston Globe reporter who does their research, seeing what's happening in the suburbs, saw the story, picked it up, and ran a huge feature on us. And so again, you never know. Think about every different type of community you're involved with in any personal way. So if you're in a religious community, if, like I said earlier, if you're a runner, if you are, alumni somewhere, whatever different types of communities you are, look at the type of opportunities you have to get the news out there, and you never know where it can go from there. If you know this story of Brian Williams, you'll understand why his photo's there. But there are things that reporters are always trying to avoid. They do not want to be known in any of these ways. They don't want to be, deceptive. They don't want to appear to have a conflict of interest. They don't want to show bias. And so when they're looking at your pitch, they're also considering how it's going to play on their end too. So if you present them with bad facts that they run, you will be burned forever. And so I just really wanted to be clear that reporters are constantly thinking about at least not having the appearance of any of these, which is, a hurdle you have to overcome when you're doing your pitching. So think about those as you think about this. So I'll get to it at the end, but I thank you so much to everyone who sent in your pitches to me over the past 2 days for me to go through. But you're going to see a trend of what people normally do. The pitches I see from people most often, the biggest problem is that it's basically an advertisement for you. You're missing all of the key pieces of newsworthiness. And so understanding the difference between what you're going to get from the press and what you're going to get in an advertisement. In advertising, you're motivating with catchy concepts. The press, they're really leading with facts. Make sure you're bringing facts to the table. In advertising, you can control the content. In the press, they can take whatever they want, and they decide how it's used. So something you might think is important, they might not share at all. And they might do an entire story just on the fact that you're a female founder and not even mention your business. It's completely up to them what they do with the content that you provide them. In advertising, you can exaggerate and distort the truth, and that's deadly on the press side. So the facts have to be interesting on their own. Advertising expensive and press is free. That's a huge piece of it. So even though it's not exactly what you want them to say, you're getting your business name out there, your name out there, and starting that relationship. Advertising, really important here. That's repeat messaging. So there's a chance of being seen more than once. In the press, you've got one chance. There's very, small likelihood, there's some occasions where they'll run the same story a few times, maybe the same day, maybe, during the holidays when they run some of their favorite stories from over the summer. But more often than not, you've got one chance. And so it needs to be extraordinarily clear. And in advertising, this is a big one. If you ask people, they say they tend to avoid ads. They don't want to see ads. But on the other hand, people are seeking out press. They want to learn. So you've got a really engaged audience if you have people, who are watching yours compared to maybe an ad that's running on TV. And so all of this comes down to the relationship with the reporter. When you think about it in those different ways, you're being mindful of what they're looking for. You also have to be respectful that they might not want to run your story. This might sound obvious. A huge part of our day as reporters was just having to talk to people who just couldn't understand why we wouldn't run this story, or calling in multiple times. Did we get that press release? With 900 emails a day, they're not responding to everyone. They most likely saw your pitch. And if they decide not to do it, you have to respect that. Once they do talk to you, there's almost rarely an opportunity to say, like, how's the weather over there? Get to the point. These people are extremely busy and are on really tight deadlines. And so respecting their time is a huge piece. Get to the point. Be honest and transparent about your desire for an interview. Great. I'm really glad. I would love to be the one that you interview about this. Just, cut through any of that awkward feeling. By the time you're talking, they want to know upfront what your motivations are to make sure that you're both on the same page. And again, if you can't reach them, avoid the temptation to repeatedly call. That pitch didn't work. Try another one in the future, and keep going. Again, I'm sorry, we're rushing through all this. Each one of these could be an entire session. So I see a lot of people writing in questions. I will try to get to them. How to be interviewed once you do get chosen, your story's chosen, you're so excited. Remember that you get 8 to 12 seconds to chat. There, in a story that's a minute 30, maybe up to 2:10, rarely anymore. So 2 minutes and 10 seconds or a minute 30 on local news. You get maybe 2 or 3, probably 1 or 2 sound bites in that entire story. So how can you make sure that those messages are clean, clear, and exactly what you want to say? Make sure you always know, if you had an opportunity to give 3 8-second sound bites, what would you want people to know? And you can think about that now. You can think about that ahead of time. You can write them down. Have them always in your back pocket, ready to go. A trick that I tell people that really works almost every single time is that when someone comes to interview you, they've got the microphone, you can say, hey, I'm nervous. I don't do this a lot. Can I tell you just 3 things that I want to make sure I get out so I don't forget them? And you can then offer those 3 great main sound bites right up front. More often than not, they will use at least one of those, because they're going to take that, well, it's not like tape anymore, but they'll physically take that tape, replay it, and decide what sound bites they want to use. And they're usually going to be in such a hurry, they're going to pick the best sounding bites and write the story around it. And so if you clearly said your messages up front, those are more likely to get into the story than not, especially now. A lot of times reporters are covering multiple stories a day. They might hand off that interview they did to a producer to pick the sound bites. And so they're going to listen without knowing the story, just for the 3 best sounding sound bites to write the story around. So there's no confusion. You can bring a handout of the nuts and bolts and facts. And so that handout should have, your name, how it's spelled, what your title is, the name of your company, the best way to download Dig, the fact that Dig is free, all of these things that no matter what the story is about, you want to make sure they get right no matter what. Hand it to them. So there's no confusion there. Again, this is all if you're not live, but if you aren't live, you can always repeat to clarify. So if you messed up your 8 seconds, take a breath and start over, and they will use the clean piece. You can, make sure you give them their contact information, because the last thing you want is for them, maybe something went wrong with the tape, they can't reach back out to you. Be available for them if they need to clarify something or if they need to do it again. Practice, don't do what I'm doing right now. Control your body language. Speak slowly, even though you only have 8 to 12 seconds. If you're speaking too quickly and it's difficult to understand, they're not going to use it anyway. So slow down, take a breath, and come up with a really great sentence that is clear that they can use. And then this one's a little bit for men. Wear non-distracting clothing. A lot of shirts have really small stripes. Sometimes on TV it gives like a zebra effect. I really suggest you wear plain clothes. You always see me in what I'm wearing right now, a Dig shirt, really clear, not small patterns. And so it's not distracting. The last thing you want is for people to look at what you look like rather than listening to that only 8 seconds that you have there. I think we're almost done here, so I'm going to go really quickly. Your 8 to 12 second quotes, you also have the opportunity to be their emotion. They're much more likely to pick something that has emotion, that has feeling, because as a reporter, they're not supposed to put that in there themselves. So the only opportunity they have there is when you are saying in your quotes. Again, you can continue to use superlatives. More often than not, they're going to choose the soundbite that says you're the fastest, best at whatever it is. Think about writing it as cutting out the commas, so that way they can't chop up what you say. Try to do a full sentence for your 8 to 12 second quotes, and use full sentences. So if they ask you a question, repeat the question to make it a full sentence so they can use that whole soundbite. Here's a quote that I use all the time that my sister has begged me to stop using, because we talk about dog poop in every news story that's out there. But you can see why they pick it, right? I say, you really do let your walls down when you bring your dog on a date. It's hard to come off as pompous when picking up dog poop. That's about 8 seconds, which works on written news as well. This is about the length of a soundbite that they're looking for, or a quote that they're looking for. It really gives the feeling of Dig, and it's got some emotion behind it. It's totally different. It's kind of funny. You can see why reporters would take this and want to use it. And for us, it gives a really good feeling of why people choose to use Dig, the dog person's dating app. Let's see where we are here. Follow up, it's really all again about remembering that these reporters are humans. They're going to get things wrong. There's rarely an article that doesn't have one tiny fact wrong. I've been, across news articles, I've been apparently from Shreveport, Louisiana, from Philadelphia, from Los Angeles. They get these basic things wrong. I don't know why. All of it's there, but really weigh your relationship, your want for a relationship with that reporter with a need for a correction. Now that you have this relationship, you can send them updates. Don't over pitch. Don't send something every single week that something happens, but remember that you're building that relationship so you can offer them things. One of the best ways to build a relationship is offer them story ideas that have nothing to do with you. Offer them other pet related story ideas or other female entrepreneur related story ideas, or, maybe it's National Siblings Day and a great local business that was started by two sisters. Just throw it that way so they remember you and they think about you as the expert in that, whatever it may be. That's a great way to build relationships. And then immediately after they cover you, you can help them by making sure you share that story again, you tag them, you put it on your press page, because again, they're looking for eyeballs as well. So you're really helping by making sure their story is shared and they're getting those additional clicks. I know we're running out of time, so if we want to do questions now instead, I did have these two example pitches from a couple of people who wrote in. I picked two. I won't read them out loud right now, but the main thing here, if you look at them, is, first of all, thank you so much for sending them and, throwing your own pitch to the wolves. I really appreciate it. I see these type of pitches all the time. They're awesome companies. Obviously, in the pet care industry, we want to learn so much about them. I'm super fascinated by it, but they're really missing the timeliness edge. They've come off as advertisements. The second one here starts with the name of the company. And so even though it's a super interesting topic to all of us, you have to build in something specific, timely, and to the community of people you are pitching in order to get these picked up by news reporters. And in the end, all of that could be there's no rules to any of this. This is just general guidelines of what normally works. You could pitch an ad and they might pick it up in Ellen DeGeneres. You never know what's going to happen. This is just general guidelines of what normally works and coming from a reporter's perspective. So that's my very long presentation. So excited you guys are all here. I can take a look at questions now if you'd like, or Assad, however you want to take it from here.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. This was unbelievably helpful. And I think we're going to have 3 more sessions on this just to fully get it done. But so I think what I want to get to is certainly the questions. While we're getting there, how much time are you spending on this? How much time should these startups be spending on this?
Spending on trying to get press?
Yeah.
That's a great question. Because I really suggest that you are looking at exactly who you're pitching to. It can vary. So, each individual story should be pretty easy to pitch because you've already got your press kit together. You've already got, everything that the reporter is going to need, except for that 1 to 2 sentence line about how it relates to them and their community. So it can be very quick. We use the same exact press release and pitch when we're doing our events across the country. I just change up exactly how it relates to Denver dog owners or Las Vegas dog owners and their community. So it takes me no time to pitch 400 reporters in one city because all I'm doing is changing the first line of what I'm already showing them. And so since you're not doing a blanket pitch to everyone, you really can determine how much time you need to spend on that. That's not a great answer. But.
Oh, that's great. And so when you are going to Denver, how do you find those 400 people?
So really, really basic. Start with Wikipedia and click on what is Denver local news. You're going to see a list of the top local news places. And then also now they have a lot of local podcasts, whatever it may be. And that's a really good starting place. So what I do is I gather what are the top 4 news stations, what are the top 4 newspapers. And then I go to their websites, go to their team page and look up the reporters there. And they usually have their names and email addresses right there. And from there, I'll usually go to Twitter and look up the top Twitter accounts in each city that I'm going to. And then if I really want to do the pet world, or specifically, if I want to get in Pet Age magazine or Modern Dog magazine or Texas Dog magazine, then I'm just pitching them anyway. So I'm going directly to their website to find their contact information.
And I'm going to use the Denver example a few more times. How far in advance are you researching and then pitching and then,
What I personally do for an event is I do a month, a week, a day. And I'll do different reporters sometimes for each one of those. I might do a month out to the general assignment desk at, denvernews.com. And then a week out, I might pitch an individual reporter, and the day before, I might pitch an individual producer. But yeah, I follow the month, a week, a day if it's a specific thing that you're covering. And then, I'll take a couple hours, but that even is generous. It might be an hour just to find exactly all the reporters who I want to reach out to just the day before that month timeline.
Right. And just because I know you did something at the Super Zoo conference when you were in Vegas, you got some press there. Is that a strategy as well? If you know you're going to be in town for a conference or whatever, is that something you specifically do?
Totally. Yeah. So that specific example, when we launched for the first time ever in Valentine's Day 2018, a few reporters had seen the stories that I had talked about. The iHeart News stations had covered it in Las Vegas. So a local news reporter said, hey, whenever you're out here, I want to do this story on Dig when you launch in Las Vegas. And so when I was in Las Vegas, I reached out and said, hey, there's this giant pet conference going on with tons of amazing dogs running around. I'm here. I can get to your station. Here's all the video you need about Dig and how our app works, screenshots of the app. Here's the newest update. Here's when we expect to launch in Las Vegas. Do you want to do this story now? And they said yes.
That's awesome. So I'm recognizing time. We have about 8 minutes. I'm just going to try to go through a bunch of these. What's the best way to build hype about a novelty product with PR tools? Like what if it's not a direct-to-consumer product?
So really taking a look at those ideal terms, like you can always figure out something that's timely about your product. Two really easy ways to come up with something that's timely when you can't is, like I said before, new research or surveys that come out. You can attach yourself to something that's new and make whatever you're doing timely. And then this sounds silly, but those national holidays, at Dig, we actually sponsored and created a new national holiday to make ourselves newsworthy on that day every single year. It's Dog Mom's Day. The day before Mother's Day is an official national holiday now. But look, every single day there's something out there, and I bet you can connect yourself to it. Recently there was mental health, and so many pet care companies here, you can find a way to connect how having a healthier, more joyous dog or animal in your life can relate to that. So if you can't think of ways that you're necessarily connected to a certain audience or connected to how something's timely, take a step back and just do a brainstorming session, especially for community. What I always suggest people is work with your group, so your team, your developers, every single person, and say, let's figure out all the communities that we are connected to. And like I said before, that might be religious, that might be a hobby, Harry Potter fans, whatever it may be, and then look at the outlets that are connected to that. And just because your business is made up of people who belong to this community, now you have a relationship you can start building with those reporters. And so it might be hard. One of the hardest parts of this is thinking about how you are newsworthy, but taking those ideal pieces and really breaking it down and giving yourself a lot of different options and thinking about all the different types of news that's out there, you'll be able to find something.
Great. What's your thoughts on Harpo, Help a Reporter?
Rarely have, they get a ton of requests. I mean, as soon as they put one out there, and for people who don't know it, you can sign up for it. It's Help a Reporter Out. It was not around as I was a reporter. I'm not sure I would have used it, but they'll post something like, hey, I'm doing a story on, dogs whose paws get too hot on the concrete. If you're an expert, please tell me why I should interview you. It can be a time suck because you never know exactly what they're looking for. But if you're on top of it and you've got all your press kit and everything ready, you've got a leg up over everyone else who's pitching. So if you want to take the time for that, I think it's like 3 times a day they send out an email with like 500 requests from reporters. We've had some luck on it. And, we used to have someone that just looked at it every day. We stopped doing it just because it's easier to build a relationship with a reporter that you want than to just like mind-numbingly read this list all day long. But again, if you're in pet, you've got a leg up because you're human interest. If you have your press kit ready, you've got your leg up because they don't have to do all of the work. So doing all the background before and then going into that, you're in a better situation than most people to get picked up.
Great. And okay, I'm going to do 2 more questions and then we'll chat. What was I going to ask? If you're just getting started and you don't have testimonies or stories from buyers or users, what do you suggest there?
I think as a startup, you're going to want those anyway, right? So like, why do people want your product? I think that's just as good as a way to offer up a good soundbite. Or, get someone who's dealing with the problem. What problem are you solving? And then who's out there to talk about that? Maybe there's an expert out there that's been suggesting that this product be made for a long time. There's a lot of other ways to incorporate other experts or other testimonials even before you launch. And I think that's a really great opportunity, especially because you can then pick who you want to interview. So you can go to their community. I used Runner's World before. If you're pitching Runner's World, go talk to a bunch of runners about how they love to run with their dog and how they've always needed a better leash that doesn't get wrapped around their legs when their dog goes after a bird, whatever it may be. That way you can actually target your reporter even more so by picking people who relate to your business and have this opportunity to chat with them.
Great. Last question, and then I'll figure out a way to get Leigh to answer all of these other ones. But online versus local and news outlets, what do you think about pitching online?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the reason I talk a lot about local news is because they're going to end up online. And then once they end up online, you've got this kind of stamp of approval of some, NBC affiliate. It's going to be much easier to get picked up by your favorite blog or a favorite, other outlet once you get these initial, trustworthy stations to cover you. But one of our best articles that ran was from Refinery 29, Cosmopolitan Online, those type of things. So it's the same idea. Make sure that you understand that community and you're pitching to that community really well. And those big ones were the reason that they found us was because we were on smaller outlets first. And so you've got to really start small and big and continue that momentum, and you will get the attention from the bigger ones.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to stop there because I want to be cognizant of ending on time. And so, I want to thank you. Awesome presentation. That was tremendous. Everybody else, I will share the link to this and then I think if people want the deck, they should email you. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Or I'm happy to send it out too. We'll figure it out. And then, thank you, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed it, and definitely give Leigh some praise. Any parting thoughts, Leigh?
Yeah. Tell all the single dog lovers about Dig, and go feel free to download for free.
Awesome. And do you have is your email on one of these slides?
It's not, but it's Leigh, Leigh @digdates.com. And happy to share that and anything here. If anyone needs extra help, brainstorming the newsworthiness side, you want me to double check your press releases, I can work with you one-on-one as well. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, hire her, because if you don't, I will. But thank you very much. And thanks everybody for joining. We're going to stop recording now. Thank you.
Thank you.